Now, everyone's enjoying their lovely bank holiday. It's recognised as such as International Workers' Day in many countries, but not so much here. Why not?
Well, I think May Day's sort of become detached from its original roots, which were about celebrating working people and focusing on workers' rights. So I think it's a shame that we're not more aware of that. And maybe it's something that the labour movement and trade unions should be working to kind of bring back in the public consciousness.
Let's talk about your own union. You're General Secretary of the Musicians' Union, and when all of us think about musicians, we might think about Adele or Ed Sheeran. Presumably, you don't represent the massive stars, or do you?
We've got a lot of massive stars in our membership, actually, but no, on a day-to-day basis, we're focusing on the rights of working musicians who need our support and help. So I suppose somebody at Adele's level probably doesn't need the assistance from the union, like some of our members who work in orchestras or in the theatre pits in London, our members who are music teachers, and our gigging musicians who perform in their local pubs and clubs.
What's the biggest challenge for your members in the workplace today?
Well, like any trade union, the big focus really is pay and conditions. So obviously during the pandemic, all of our members' workplaces just shut down overnight. The live sector just vanished. So our members were in financial hardship during that period of time. Now they're back at work, but we've got a cost of living crisis. And a lot of their employers and engagers just don't have the money to give them the pay rise that they need. So we're doing a lot of work around pay and conditions at the moment, but also we're focusing on issues like music streaming, where musicians don't get fair royalties and most of the money goes to the major record labels. We're also looking at music education, so we need to get a fair deal for music teachers and make sure that that's a key part of the curriculum. And we're also tackling sexual harassment in the music industry. You just referred to the culture in Westminster. I think there's a lot of workplaces where there's still a sort of culture that kind of thing goes on, and it's just been accepted in the past, and we need a change.
And you are the first woman General Secretary of the Musicians' Union since the union was founded in 1893. I mean, gosh, if we talk about sexism, perhaps the lack of women, senior women, at the head of the trade union movement is a stark reminder of it.
Well, your last interview, he was just talking about how the culture's changed in Westminster. Now there have been female people in senior jobs. And I think we're seeing that finally in the trade union movement. Traditionally, the trade union movement was really male dominated. And the music industry is also extremely male dominated, particularly in the senior jobs. So I think that it's a really positive sign that I've been elected by our members to represent musicians. Hopefully that's the sign of a culture change in the trade union movement and in music as well.
And let's have a look at more generally trade union membership. Now, the number of trade unionists has climbed over the past 4 years, but it's still only half of its peak of 13.2 million in 1979. Further to that, private sector workers, it's just 13%. And the lowest paid workers, it's just 10%. It's a problem, isn't it?
It is a big problem. And I think we, as trade unions, we've got more to do to get across the message that we're still very relevant to working people. And as I mentioned, some of our campaigns around music streaming, you wouldn't necessarily associate that with a trade union. But again, it just comes down to pay and conditions. So I think we've got to try and get the message out to younger people who don't associate with the union movement, and just get across the point that actually this is for everybody. Everybody needs the union when times are tough. And, you know, we could all be in that position in our working lives at some point. So, yeah, I still think that trade unions are extremely relevant, probably more so than ever coming out of the pandemic. Our membership actually has kind of held up through the pandemic. And I think it is true that musicians have needed us more than ever.
Final question, as it is a bank holiday. Why do we get so few bank holidays in England and Wales, way below the European average? We're just on 8 days a year.
Well, a lot of things are done very well in European countries when it comes to workers' rights, and unfortunately, we've fallen a bit behind. So there's a lot of talk now, particularly with people working from home more, about how we could potentially move to a 4-day working week and still be just as productive. So you never know. Maybe we'll end up with some more bank holidays, or maybe we'll end up with a shorter working week. And I think a lot of people would really welcome that.